Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Fired Up with CJ show. I'm CJ Lou, and we have Betsy Chasse talking about her newest book. Hi, Betsy.
Hi.
Tipping Sacred Cows, the uplifting story of spilt milk and finding your own spiritual path in a hectic world. This book is hilarious.
Thank you.
You are so funny. You're the
Oh.
perfect mix of funny and poignant and insightful. Like, that's pretty much perfection.
Oh gosh.
Don't let that get to your ego, but
I
seriously,
won't.
it's great.
It's like I'm a bit of an idiot savant with that. I think it just comes naturally. It just, I tell people all the time, listen, I'm a train wreck. And I do this as, we always talk about in the spiritual world about being in service.
Yes.
My train wreckness is in service to humanity.
Oh, and we appreciate it. Continue
Somebody
getting
has
train wrecks.
Somebody has to fail miserably at everything so that you can look at it and go, oh, I just don't want to. I'll just do whatever. I'll do the opposite of whatever she does. That's really why I'm here. To set an example. Exactly.
Yeah.
And the scary thing is they let us have children.
That's absolutely true.
Yesterday or the other day, I was going out, and I have two pairs of shoes that are they're these sandals, and they're kind of sparkly. Yeah. And one, I have a pair in gold and a pair in silver because if you've read my book, you know that I have a thing about shoes. And so these were awesome, and I had to have them both colors. But I literally was walking out my front door, and I had a gold one on and a silver one on.
No, that looks intentional. That's intentional.
It was. Well, I could have, if I had made it out to where I was going, that's what I would have said. But at least I caught myself before I got in the car.
All right, so we're talking about the most important topic, shoes. One of your sacred cows.
Shoes are very spiritual. Like, here's the thing. I finally realized the easiest way to higher consciousness is high heel shoes.
Exactly. At least you're uplifted maybe 4 inches.
Exactly.
Just by the shoes alone.
Really. We all need a little help up, right?
Absolutely.
And this is the start.
Okay, what is a sacred cow and why should I care?
So a sacred cow is anything that you hold up against criticism or anything that you don't question, a belief or something that you have utter faith in. So what I mean about sacred cows in the book is that, essentially we live our lives and based on our belief systems. What we believe dictates how we will be in the world and how we will perceive the world. Mm-hmm. So the sacred cows are then those beliefs. And the tipping of them is that for me in my own life, as you and I have been talking about, you get to a certain age. For me, it was about 40, where I started to look at my train wreck of a life, which had just imploded. I was getting divorced and my went broke. So essentially what I realized was that, God, like if I wanted to recreate a new life, like I said, okay, this like every 10 years, my life seems to explode into like a big, mess of vomit all over the place. I'd like to try to figure out if I'm going to recreate myself in a new life, how to do that in a more conscious way, that I'm creating my experience of reality based on my perception of it. And my perception of it is being filtered through my belief system. So why don't I figure out what it is that I really believe? And then I can actually decide if that's true and I want to believe that, or if it's just something that I've just attached as a belief that really isn't true, that I've just been carrying around with me, and I can essentially tip it. I can tip the sacred cow. So in my book, I talk a lot about my own personal sacred cows around self-worth, around love, around money.
Okay, so let's go back to that moment when you actually hit that aha. Because, so you did this movie in which a lot of the idea was you create your own realities, and then you had a moment one morning, right? Tell us about that moment and what happened.
Well, the moment in the morning was like, I think the realization, but it was really a long process. After The Bleep came out, I think I was always very amused by this too. And the irony in it is pretty funny is that, okay, so before The Bleep, like I hadn't even read a book about quantum physics. Like I didn't even know how to spell it. All of a sudden The Bleep comes out, it's hugely successful. And this girl, the least spiritual person on the planet probably, is suddenly on stage in front of 1,000 people explaining to them how they can, be spiritual too, just like me.
And have beautiful shoes.
And have great shoes.
Yes. Okay.
So then I lived that for a while. But, it's interesting beliefs and the stuff that goes on in our head. And there was always doubt. So there were certain things that I began to question. And as I began to question those things and question myself, the things that used to fulfill, I felt maybe like they were fulfilling me, really weren't. And that moment was when I finally came to the realization that everything in my life was essentially a lie. And I just asked that, came to that point where I said, okay, I'm 40 years old. I can continue with this program until I die, and be pretty miserable in the process. Or I can interrupt your regularly scheduled programming and do something different. And if I don't make that choice right now, I don't know that I'll ever have the courage to do it again. You go. So one of the biggest pieces of the bleep was the sequence where Dr. Joe says, I create my day. And I remember waking up in the morning and laying there, and there's that moment before you put your feet on the floor and you accept your reality, where you start to run through your life a little bit. And it's weird if you do this. There's this like, okay, I've got to do, I've got to clean out the kitty litter box. I've got to get groceries. I've got to, pluck my eyebrows. I really need to shave, those things. Yeah. And then you start, really what starts happening is that you start accepting those things. And I had this moment where I was like, I don't really want to do this. I don't. I have no desire to shave my legs. Yeah. I really don't. I don't really want to be the wife of this person anymore. I don't even know this person. This person doesn't even know me. I don't really want to get up today and tell people how to live a happy life, because the truth is I'm not living a happy life. Who am I to tell anybody? So, that's when the questions started happening. And then you wake up and you're looking around you and you're like, I don't even know why I'm here. And I tried for a while to try on all the, stuff in your spiritual toolbox, the I am happy. All that crap that we tell ourselves, it's utter bullshit. And finally I just came to the realization that, what? I don't want to do that anymore. I really would like to know who I am.
Right. Instead I'm a big question mark.
Yeah, I'd like to actually, instead of plugging in spiritual, cool spiritual buzzword, inspirational quote from Facebook, and all those input, how about if I just stop for a second and say, what else is there?
And so a lot of people are getting divorced at this age right now. How did your spiritual center help you throughout that divorce, or how did it hurt you? Because it seems like it did both.
Right. Well, okay. So, I think that for me, I had to come clean with why I got married in the first place. I think and the willingness to be self-reflective helped tremendously during my divorce, because while there was a certain part of me that was perfectly capable and willing often to say it's all his fault, the truth is, with myself, with the people, my therapist, for instance, I had a great therapist, and with, my friends that I decided to keep in my life, I was more interested in going, okay, it doesn't really serve me anymore to look at that person and blame them for everything. Right. How can I grow here? What is it that I need to change? What are the belief systems around love that got me to marry somebody that I probably should never have married in the first place? Now, I say that, but the truth is, I even say this in the book, I'm really glad that I got married. I have great kids. It was an experience. And that's another part, I think, of at least being willing to have a higher perspective or a more broader perspective. The words higher consciousness sound so elitist. It's not that I'm, the fact that I am at least willing to open up the spectrum to see other possibilities and other interpretations, that, helped.
Yeah. Yeah, so it sounds like, one, having time to self-reflect, like, how did I even get here, and what kind of weird little story was my ego playing? What did my ego want? What were the stories that I had operative that got me here in the first place? And then moving from a place of anger and blame to one of like, hey, I'm accountable for whatever happened.
Right. Well, I talk a lot in the book and in a lot of the blogs and stuff that I write for, I write for Huffington Post Divorce, and I write for Modern Mom, Single Mom. It's like, it just doesn't serve any of us to sit around and say, blame. And what it was really interesting was I did this really cool course right at the beginning of my divorce that helped me a lot. That was like an 8-week program,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the people that were in that course, you know, were in a rush to get married again or to meet someone else
Yeah.
or to do it all again.
Right.
And it's
Fill the gap.
right. And it's been really interesting because, I have not been in that rush. And one of the greatest things that came out of getting divorced was like, I love the fact that I was married. Okay, I got divorced. It didn't work out. I have awesome kids. Um, I ran the program, which is, get married, have babies, have the house. We all get stuck with that program,
Right.
that consume,
The
consume.
sacred cows.
Right. So, but one of the cool things that came from getting divorced for me was this realization that, like, I actually don't have to do any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't have to get married again. I don't have to play by any of those societal rules anymore.
Mm. Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, and I don't know that I would have ever gained that insight had I not gotten divorced.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big thing for me is like, it's like my kids now come to me and they ask me, well, do I have to get married? And I say, you know what? No. Do I have to have babies? No. Do I have to do this? No. Why did you? Because I thought I did.
Wow.
You know?
Well, what's cool about that is that you feel a sense of wholeness and completion without another person because you don't really need another person. I mean, it's nice to have it if you choose to, but I think that the choice of being alone is a huge one because I think in some ways it marks a certain point in your spiritual journey that you can just say,
Right.
I'm okay by myself.
Well, and like I'm dating someone right now who I absolutely love and adore, and the relationship is totally different
Yeah.
because it was the first time that I entered into a relationship with somebody where, it didn't care what they did for a living.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't care how much money they had. I wasn't looking for them to be my savior and protector.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the typical programs that girls run,
Right. Because you feel
you know,
complete on your own without that person having to
right.
supply what you feel is a deficit.
Right. So I'm really just interested in him as a person.
Wow.
And whether or not he continues in my life won't impact my life going on.
Yeah.
And it makes for such a much better relationship for me now. But I also don't think I would have been able to have that kind of relationship now had I not had the experience that I had. So, one of the things I caution people is, that are getting divorced is don't look back and say, oh, I went through the experience of feeling like a failure, that I failed my kids and I failed my marriage. But then, that's a normal process. I mean, when you get divorced or when you go through a grieving process. But what I finally came out with was, wow, okay, that was an experience. We got married. We were married for 10 years. We got divorced. And now I get to do now I can have a whole new experience. And what can I take from that experience? What learning can I take from that and move on to the next place in my life? Well, the one thing I would leave you with is that, I have a lot of struggles in my life, just like everybody else does. We all do. But I've really, the message from my book, if the one takeaway you could get is, happiness is not a destination, it's a state of mind. And for me, the reason I seem happy is because I'm choosing happy.
Yeah. That's ultimately it. You have to choose it. It's
Yeah.
not easy to choose it.
No.
You have to choose it every day.
Every moment.
Every moment, every day. Tipping Sacred Cows by Betsy Chasse. So, thank you so much for being. Hey, thank you so much for listening to the Fire It Up with CJ show. I hope you enjoyed the show and that you learned something or found something that you'd like to try out. It means so much to me that you're listening to the show and love your support in any way by giving me comments below or to subscribe to the show or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.